Welcome to the third episode of the Area Podcast. I'm Alessandro Bertucci, broker of record for Area Realty Inc., and this is my colleague.
I'm Owen Fawcett. I'm a salesperson here at Area Realty Inc.
Nice. I'm glad to be back on the mic, and may as well start off with see how your weekend was. And what'd you get up to this weekend?
Well, I worked, as is often the case. We had open houses. So Saturday, Sunday, running open houses at our listing at Beatrice, which we'll talk a bit about later. I also had some family visiting. Had my sister, my brother-in-law, 3 kids under the age of 7 staying in our 2-bedroom condo.
Busy household.
It was very busy. It was fun. It was loud, but it was fun.
Very good.
Always my family's, they live far away, 5 hours. So any opportunity to see them is worth the loud noise.
Very cool. I had my son's first birthday party this weekend, so it was pretty hectic and busy. My wife's first week back at work, so the Sunday, Monday was a little bit chaotic, but glad to be here. And we could jump into it and talk about, how did the open houses go this weekend? I know last week we talked about 231 Beatrice, how we planned an offer date for Monday, April 15th, and that came and went. And let's talk about it.
Yeah. So, we did 2 weekends of open houses, 4 in total, and they were very busy. I would say they were a bit busier the first weekend, but still consistent people coming through the second one. And
how many people do you think we had through the open houses?
In total?
Yeah.
Probably about 80 to 100 different groups of people over the 4 days.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. Very busy. And that's, I say group, meaning like groups of 2, families of 4. It was very busy. It was a constant revolving door of people visiting. So
let's get right into it. We had offers on our house for sale at 231 Beatrice, and we actually achieved 4 really good offers. Mm-hmm. It was a long night. We were here at the office until 11 o'clock with the owner, going back and forth. And inevitably, we didn't sell the house on offer night. Mm-hmm. That being said, this was all part of our strategy. We actually, prior to selling the house, were discussing with the owner on what to do if the house doesn't sell. Because you really don't know what price a house is going to sell for. You don't know what price to actually list it at. It's more of a marketing price than anything. That being said, we got some really good offers. The owner was really happy, but she decided to take it off the market. Mm-hmm. So we took the house off the market, and under her instruction, we relisted the house at a higher price. And this is a strategy that I think you and I have both done before and worked out in favor of the homeowner. Homeowners usually know best. And now we have the house relisted at $1,500,000. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, for anybody, most people who have heard anything about real estate have heard of an offer date. For those of you who don't really know or want to know more, it's one particular strategy for listing a house where you set a particular date, and it's usually a week, 2 weeks max, and in that time you get to drive up as much interest as possible, and then you tell everybody who comes, present your offer on this one day, and you create some competition, and that is one way to just get a great sense of what the market is saying about your house, but it also kind of it gives you a timeline for getting answers. And I think ultimately what we got on offer night was some great answers, and are moving forward now to make sure that our clients get the top price that they can get, which is ultimately the goal, right?
Exactly. So our clients in no rush to sell. Mm-hmm. And we use the same strategy on a house on Euclid Street, and we ended up achieving $225,000 more. Few $100,000 more than offers that we received on offer night.
Yeah, and that one we had 16 offers on.
We had 16 offers on a house for sale in Palmerston, Little Italy, and our client said no to all of them, and they did the right thing. Another agent who's pretty well known on social media sold the exact same house across the street, and when I mean exact same, pretty much almost identical, for $250,000 less. Now, that being said, every situation is different. Every circumstance is different. Every sale is different. We just catered this solution to our client. And we're trying to replicate that. And I think we're going to do well. If you want to live in this neighborhood, you have to pay the premium. So our house, 231 Beatrice, is listed on the market for $1,500,000. And it's going to be a great buy with a little bit of work inside that house. It's going to be a $2+ million house.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the thing. I mean, most row homes in Palmerston, Little Italy. I have the Q1 stats for 2024, and the average row home in Palmerston, Little Italy, is sold for $1.78 million. $1,780,000 is the average price of a row home selling in Palmerston, Little Italy. Now,
those numbers could be a little bit skewed.
by, if all that's sold was something that's finished and turnkey, so the number's skewed. But that's just to say that
There's value here.
yeah, you're paying a premium to live here. You can't walk into certain pockets and expect to pay the same price as other pockets. You just can't do that, right? Like you can't expect to pay the price for a home up at like Eglinton and Keele as you would down here. It's just that Toronto is a market, but Toronto's full of micro pockets, micro markets, and that's kind of the whole point of talking about different communities on this podcast, is highlighting these little micro pockets in the city.
So talking about communities, let's get into what we're going to spotlight this week. This week we're going to spotlight the Annex. Very historic, very reputable, defined geographically from, you can help me out with this, from Bloor Street to the tracks north of Dupont Street,
Yeah.
east to Yonge Street,
Yeah.
and west to Christie Street.
Which is a very big rectangle of like central Toronto, and I don't think most people would think of parts of that as being part of the Annex. This is just what TREB defines it as, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. I think most people would think of the Annex as being Bathurst to Spadina, maybe a bit further east towards
Yeah, like
U of
Bathurst,
T.
between Bathurst and Dupont, Bloor and Bathurst, that general area, veering north-south off Spadina.
When you think of the Annex, I think of that stretch along Bloor Street from Spadina to Bathurst.
Well, you used to live in the Annex.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was your
I
experience
lived
like?
on Huron Street, right up near Dupont, very close to Dupont subway station, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The streets are full of old trees, so when you're walking down those residential side streets, you have massive trees, these big, beautiful houses, birds chirping. It feels very quiet, even though you can see the CN Tower in the distance. And you walk down to Bloor Street, and there's tons of great businesses. There's no shortage of restaurants, bars to go explore. And then just being so close to both subway lines was incredibly convenient.
So I think what a lot of the Annex is known for, it's kind of anchored by University of Toronto, albeit U of T might be a little bit further south than Bloor Street. However, you get a lot of student housing in the Annex. You get a lot of apartments right beside a massive $5-6 million house on Madison Avenue. So it's a bit eclectic. It's really cool. I think we've done a bunch of business in the Annex. I think one of the most notorious streets in the Annex would be Brunswick Avenue, formerly close to the old Brunny, which I don't think is.
No, it's not. The Brunny does not exist anymore. Probably a good thing.
I don't know if we can talk about this, but you can't really implicate yourself. But that was probably the underage drinking bar in Toronto, which was called the Brunswick House. I remember.
I went there underage. Oops. Years ago.
We sold, and maybe 539 Brunswick Avenue, a legal triplex in, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, not even?
Yeah, year and a half ago.
And we achieved a really good number for our client. And I can see why he owned that house for multiple years. When he got married, he built it as a triplex. He lived on the first floor. He rented out the second and third floor and had a tenant in the basement and, put in the work, put in the time, and eventually decided to sell it. And we were the listing. We were actually featured on the Globe and Mail, the cover of the Globe and Mail for that house. So why do you think people want to live there with respect to the culture? Like, what places of influence, what's around there that makes it so special? We touched upon the Brunswick House, which is no longer there, but you're close to it's central Toronto, essentially is what it is. It's central Toronto. You've got to the west is Christie Pitts, which is one of Toronto's most premier parks. It's up there with High Park, and a little bit different than High Park, and Trinity Bellwoods and Bickford Park. It's centrally located in Toronto. They've got swimming pools, they've got skating rinks, they've got fields, soccer fields. A lot of families tend to navigate towards Christie Pitts. You've got all sorts of different restaurants and leisurely bistros. Having grown up in the city of Toronto, Bloor Street was basically a staple for us, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, when you consider the zone that Treb defines as the Annex, includes Yorkville, Koreatown, Seton Village. I mean, you just end up having a pocket that has tons of its own micro pockets. I always say this, it always goes back to the history of the place. So the architecture of a neighborhood always has to do with the history of a place. And actually the Annex has its own style of house called the Annex style of house. And that's where you see this predominantly Victorian, later Edwardian houses, but there are some massive homes. Walmer Road, Bedford Road, Madison, Huron. There are some massive streets in the area. And the Annex style house is known for large, rounded, Romanesque arches, Queen Anne style decorative items like turrets. Attics are emphasized in the exterior architecture, dormer windows on those attics. And the houses are made of brick, sandstone, some giant, beautiful homes.
We have a lot of clients that actually live in the Annex, and what you're going to find is a professional person that lives there with their family or their significant other or by themselves. We have a lot of actually we have a client who's a doctor that lives right smack dab in the middle at Bloor and Spadina. We've got a client who is a lawyer that lives just north of Bloor in the Annex, and it seems to be centrally located in the heart of Toronto. Basically, it's 20 minutes to go east, 20 minutes to go west, 20 minutes to go south, 20 minutes to go north.
Well, when I lived on Huron Street, I could walk a minute to DuPont subway station.
Oh, that's
and
right.
I'm on line 1. I can go anywhere downtown, or I could walk 5 to 10 minutes to St. George subway station and go east-west very quickly. Or I could walk to DuPont, ride the subway for 2 minutes, and get on the line 2. Like the access to go anywhere in the city was just quick. It was amazing.
And I think, when you get a group of people that love a specific neighborhood, typically they like it because there's amenities around there. We have a list here of a few different bars, restaurants, shops in the neighborhood, and I guess we could talk about one of my favorites growing up was the Madison Pub. And I remember a little story that we would go there on a Thursday night after a hockey game or after university. And I remember at 12 o'clock every Thursday night, you used to hear Billy Joel sing The Piano Man. And obviously it was not Billy Joel singing, but they would play Piano Man at 12 o'clock at the piano bar every Thursday night at midnight. And I thought that was pretty special. This is what the Annex has to offer, these cool little places.
Yeah, the Madison's really cool because it's 3 of these Victorian mansions connected by like hallways, balconies, stairwells. It's like a maze. It's like an M.C. Escher painting of a bar. Really cool place. I remember going there for the first time in university, of age, of course, and just get like borderline getting lost. It's a really cool place. It's mostly frequented by students, but it's kind of worth checking out just for how interesting of a place it is inside.
Well, where we go all the time with my family and friends is we go to the ROM, right? We're defining the Annex by the north side of Bloor Street and the south side of Bloor Street. So the Annex on the south side of Bloor Street, technically not really the Annex. Right. You've got the Royal Ontario Museum, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you've got amazing, and under, I guess, you've got Yorkville too, technically, according to Treb.
Yeah. Although Yorkville's its own pocket of chic condos. It's that stretch of Bloor Street from Yonge to Avenue is sort of our Rodeo Drive, our Fifth Avenue.
They call it
it's the high end shopping.
The Mink Street. Mile.
Yeah, Mink Mile, and the sidewalks are made out of black marble.
They are.
So, Yorkville itself has some very high end restaurants, boutique stores. It's really a cute little area to get lost in during TIFF. That's where a lot of celebrities stay. Is the Hyatt, and formerly the Four Seasons Hotel there. So if you want to spot celebrities, Yorkville's the place to do it in September during TIFF. But before that, in the 60s, it was sort of the bohemian center of the city, and it's famous for people like Leonard Cohen, Joni Mitchell, kind of before they were famous, performing in coffee shops around there. And then the area gentrified into the chic, sort of high-end part of the city that it is today.
We could touch a little bit upon the development that's gone on in the Annex, the condos that are being built. You've got Mirvish Village.
Which, you can't talk about the history of the Annex without talking about Mirvish Village.
Honest Eds.
Yeah, where Honest Eds once stood. No longer there, but anybody who is older than 5 or 6 years old might remember the iconic Honest Eds building taking up the whole southwest corner of Bathurst and Bloor, just covered in over 80,000 light bulbs, all these fun slogans. It was a giant discount department store, and it was massive, just massive.
I think some other notable developers that are in the neighborhood, I think you touched upon the old Four Seasons Hotel. That was purchased, built, redeveloped by Cam Rost Felcorp, one of Toronto's most premier developers. You'll see a lot of these big-time real estate developers get into Yorkville. You've got the Mizrahi buildings. Those are kind of questionable right now with some solvency issues. You've got West Bank, who's doing, Mirvish Village. You've got Daniel's building over there. So all these premium builders are really gravitating towards one of Toronto's, if not Toronto's most premier neighborhood.
There's also the north end of the Annex too, along DuPont. There's tons of development happening along there. I don't know if you've driven along DuPont recently, but there's a new building going up almost on every corner there.
So I'm going to be honest about DuPont Street. I think it's turning into a condo alley. I know Tridel kind of pioneered it with their Bianca condos, just west of where we sold our home off of Brunswick, and all those little gas station mom and pop shops that were on, I think what they used to call a gas alley before.
Yeah, industrial sort of commercial strip.
They're kind of disappearing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I feel about that. However, it's changing for a reason because of the proximity to the subway, to Christie Street, to St. Clair, to University of Toronto. So the Annex and the city's always changing. We love the Annex.
Yeah, one thing that's not changing though is those residential pockets where you have those large homes, and as you were saying, they're either these beautiful giant houses where professionals live, or these giant homes have been converted into multi-residential units. 1-2 bedroom apartments on each floor, mostly occupied by students, young professionals. The proximity to U of T, where there's almost 80,000 students attending the St. George campus, there's a lot of housing required for the people who go to that school, and then 20,000 faculty members. A lot of them end up living in the Annex too.
So one thing, I don't know, there was a new framework that was put out by the City of Toronto, and I think it started April 1st, that legalized rooming houses in basically any house in Toronto. You could convert your house into a rooming house without going to the committee, without doing any of this stuff, as long as you built within the framework of the building code, right? If you built according to the proper designs and drawings with engineers and whatnot. I'm getting a lot of phone calls from my clients about, hey, we want to start building multiplex rooming houses, multi-tenanted rooming houses, and they're gravitating towards the Annex because of what you just talked about, Owen, because of the proximity to U of T, right? U of T is a massive campus. There really isn't much housing other than student housing, first year res at U of T. So where do they go? They go just a little bit to the periphery, and the periphery a little bit further north is the Annex. And it seems to be a hotbed for students, and I think that's what drives a lot of business to the neighborhood, right? Insomnia, the bar, a lot of cool restaurants and places there.
I always remember the Annex being an area that I went to when I was younger because it was affordable. A lot of the places had affordable drinks, affordable food. The question of affordability is its own topic. But in relatively speaking to the price of going to eat, let's say, in Yorkville or on King Street, or going to drink at a club on King Street. Like the cost of a drink was always cheaper. The deals were always better on the Annex when I was younger, in the Annex.
Oh boy, has that changed. So I think another reason for people who actually, some families that live there, is there are some great schools. For elementary, you've got your Jesse Ketchum Senior and Junior Public School. You've got Huron Street Junior Public School, Palmerston Avenue Junior Public School, some private schools as well. You've got, Royal St. George's, tons of Montessori schools in the neighborhood.
U of T schools.
U of T schools, I think it's...
UTS.
UTS?
Yeah, it's a private school run by U of T. It used to be in this, or I think it still is, this very old-looking neo-Gothic building right on Bloor Street, just east of Spadina.
Was that off Walmer Road?
No, it's right on Bloor. It's like this big old-looking building.
Oh, nice. We should get my brother-in-law, Richard Messina, on the podcast. I think he's involved with, or is he at Oisey?
Yeah, he's a principal at Oisey.
He's the principal at Oisey.
Also in the Annex on Bloor Street.
Fantastic school from what I hear.
Yeah.
I wish
U of T's education, I guess, school. Well, yeah, U of T, we already touched upon it. That's the big one in the area. Yeah, U of T's huge. It's been around for years. Actually, the land that Queen's Park sits on, like where our Ontario government sits on, is owned by U of T. It's leased on a land lease, $1 a year. It's the best lease deal you'll ever find. Yeah, U of T has been in that area for a very long time, over 200 years. So you get some really cool architecture there.
Let's talk a little bit about the stats for the Annex.
Yeah.
And what are you seeing with buyers and sellers, and what are prices like over there?
Yeah, well, I mean, the prices are generally higher, and that's partly because you have bigger homes, often sometimes bigger lots than some other pockets, and that drives the price up. You have some very large detached homes, sometimes with frontages of 30, 40 feet, which is very significant in downtown Toronto. That's twice as big as a lot of other lots in other pockets. So just by that fact, you get some higher prices. So the average price of homes sold in the Annex, and this is based on the most recent TREB stats, is $1,980,000. So almost $2 million is the average price of a home sold in the Annex. Your average detached home is selling for over $4 million in the Annex.
Crazy. $4 million for a detached home in the Annex.
Because those homes are huge. These are some of the biggest houses that you'll find south of Casa Loma.
Yeah, so these are what, like 35 minimum, 40-foot lots, 50-foot lots?
3,000 square feet, 4,000. Like they're three-story houses that are fully, like, these are houses that were built in the 1800s by some of the richest people in Toronto. So, figures like George Gooderham, if anybody's familiar with Gooderham, he opened the distillery district. What's now the distillery district was a whiskey
correct.
distillery run by George Gooderham, and he lived in the Annex. Very rich man, very large house. Mirvishes are known to have lived there. You get various celebrities. David Suzuki had a house in the Annex. Margaret Atwood lives in the Annex. Catherine O'Hara at one time lived in the Annex. Frederick Banting, Sir Frederick Banting.
Sir Frederick, good friend of mine.
Good friend. He co-discovered insulin. He's a significant man, but he lived in the Annex too. So beyond that, just a lot of wealthy people built their homes in the Annex. So the footprint of what is there is just giant homes, and that's reflected in the fact that your average detached house is a $4 million house.
$4 million house. You've got some semi-detached houses that, the average price is about $2,365,000. Row homes and townhouses are $2,800,000. Condo townhouses, 2.2.
Yeah.
Condo apartments, $1.3 million.
$1.4
$1.4
million.
million.
And again, these numbers are skewed by whatever it was that sold in the time that these statistics were made. But I think it gives you a general picture of the fact that it's a premium to buy or own in the Annex.
And how long do these places stay on the market for typically? This is in the Annex.
So when you get into price points like 4 million, you tend to see a slightly longer than average amount of time on the market. 30 days, roughly. But I mean, the pool of people who are buying $4 million houses is much smaller than the pool of people buying 1.2, $1.5 million houses. So
And
it takes a little more time, right?
yeah, and rightly so, right? Not everyone's just going to drop $4.5–5 million on a home
No.
in a week. A little bit of a different strategy or approach is used when selling places in the Annex versus, list low, sell high, offer date, so to speak.
Yeah.
Sometimes every situation is different, right? I guess we can recap as to why people want to live there, and then we'll
Yeah.
go over some new thoughts after that.
Yeah, for sure. That's the livability, right? Everything you need is a short walk. Obviously, it's nice to drive to Costco, do your big shopping trip for the month. But I think there's people enjoy being able to step out their door and get what they need from something local in the area. And so I think it's easy to live there. There's places to walk to. There's things to do for free. It's nice.
I was introduced to the Annex, I think maybe when it really became significant and stood out in my mind. I was probably like 10 years old when a friend of mine took me down to the JCC.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the Miles Nadal
Community Center, yeah.
the Jewish Community Center. And that was what I was like, what is this place? This place is fantastic. I was 10 years old. I'm like, I don't know much about ethnicity and whatnot. And I said, sure, let's go. And that was, I think that's right on the corner of
Spadina and Bloor, yeah.
Spadina and Bloor, the southwest corner.
Southwest corner.
They had a swimming pool there.
Saltwater pool.
I remember
theater there as well.
I think
gym.
they have a bunch. And I know they used to work with Tom's Place, the clothing store. He used to go down there and sell suits out of there. So I've always been fascinated with the Annex, and that was my first recollection of like, what is this place? Where are we at? And this is, Spadina and Bloor. This is the Annex.
Yeah, mine was I would say university. I'm not from Toronto, right? So I didn't grow up here, but moving here for school, I went to U of T's Mississauga campus, and I have some friends who grew up in Toronto, and one of the first things you do on a free weekend is you go into the city, and the Annex was where we went. And I remember we went down this alleyway to this place called the Red Room. No, the Green Room. The Green Room. And it was down this back alleyway, and it was, cheapest place to get a drink. But like, it felt like the most city like experience I've ever had, because we had to go down this back alleyway through this back door, and then suddenly we were in this dimly lit bar full of people.
And they, what they were known for? Their student special, their $5 pad thais. Yeah. I don't think the Green Room is still where
no,
it is.
I don't think it exists.
They moved, but I heard, like, I'm a little bit older now. I'm not, going out to bars and restaurants as much as I did 10 years ago. But I remember their special was the $5 pad thais. So Green Room, shout out to the Green Room, wherever you are, your new location.
Like the first bar I ever went to in Toronto.
Oh, fantastic.
Green Room. Yeah, it was very exciting.
Well, let us know where you're at, and we'll come visit you for those. Yeah. Hopefully you have those $5 pad thai specials.
So, yeah, people love the Annex for its rich history. The rich history of bars down alleyways, but also, you got hundreds of years of just history. I don't know. The streets are older. It's a nice area to walk around.
It's very vibrant, very bustling community. I can see why people want to live there, and I think the proximity, all the subway stations there, St. George. You've got Spadina, St. George.
Oh, you got one of the locations of BMV there, Books, Movies, Videos.
Yeah.
Or Books, Music, Videos. That's been there forever. Used bookstore. It's like 2 or 3 stories. That's still there.
I think my favorite place to go in the Annex would probably be the ROM. I think that's kind of between the ROM, U of T, Bloor Street, up Spadina, and I know Peter Triantos, one of our clients, has a gallery or two in the neighborhood. Shout out to Peter.
Well, yeah, it's a vibrant, bustling commercial center, right? Like that stretch from Spadina to Bathurst is like everybody knows. Everybody knows it. It was featured in Scott Pilgrim versus the World for a reason, because it's iconically Toronto, right? There's a shot of it's not there anymore. But if you want to see Honest Ed's, it's forever immortalized in the Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie.
I'll have to watch that movie again. I don't remember that
it's
scene.
In the background, he's at the Pizza, which is still there.
On the corner.
Still there, yeah.
That was the late night pizza run after the Madison and the Runny.
Yeah. Oh, Lee's Palace.
Lee's Pal. I don't
Also
think
featured in-
I don't think the James Joyce is still there on Bloor Street.
No.
Oh, that was a fun spot to go to on St. Paddy's Day. That's for sure. I think
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, even further along Koreatown, like past Bathurst, there's even an extended stretch of commercial properties along Bloor. You got some of the best like karaoke bars. You got the Owl on Bloor Street, which is open till like 5 or 6 a.m. Great place to get Korean food late at night. That's you go sing karaoke till 3 a.m. and then you cross the street to the Owl on Bloor and you eat too much food. It's
I think the Annex has it all. And reminiscing about good times that were had in the Annex makes me kind of want to move there.
the nostalgia. Recapture our youth.
Well, I think we pretty much covered a lot of the topics that we wanted to discuss about the Annex.
Yeah. It's also just it's accessible, right? It's accessible by transit. The walkability is great. As a cyclist, it's great. You got bike lanes everywhere. It's just a great place to exist, and it's safe. Like it's a safe neighborhood.
Definitely safe. Well, that pretty much wraps up our episode. Anything else you want to talk about before we head off?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good for the Annex.
We want to talk about what's coming up between you and I over the next 2-3 weeks. We just signed. We have a lot coming up. Mm-hmm. Everyone says real estate's really slow, but you and I are killing it, man. We're killing it. We've got a 1-bedroom plus den condo coming at Yonge and St. Clair, 111 St. Clair Avenue West. It's about 900 square feet. It's a loft. Imperial Plaza. Technically, it's coming soon, coming to market tomorrow. Probably one of my favorite buildings. Maybe we can.
One of those cool 2-story condos.
30,000 square feet of amenity space.
Yeah, indoor pool, sauna. It's a great building. Well, it's
squash
a
courts.
It's the Imperial
oil building
converted into loft condos, right?
Built by Cam Ross Felcorp, who is building a lot in that neighborhood and has built in the Annex as well. So we've got that coming up. We've got a few more houses that we have that are exclusive or what they call pocket listings in the Little Italy neighborhood. Mm-hmm. We have some houses coming up at Dufferin and Eglinton. Mm-hmm. We have some houses coming up in, Little Portugal. Mm-hmm. So stay tuned.
Featuring some of those other areas.
Yeah, we should. What do we want to talk about next week? You want to go to Yonge and St. Clair? Kind of tie into our
makes sense.
Makes sense, or we could venture out east.
Let's see if anybody listening can dare to request an area for us to spotlight next. It's a very interesting market right now. I think the interest rates have held steady 5 times now. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I've noticed kind of a renewed sense of confidence in buyers, sellers. That there's more moving, there's more happening. Well, it seems like things are picking up.
I think the consumer confidence is back, right? Is it translating into higher sale prices, significantly higher sale prices, like the boom we saw in 2017 up to 2020, 2021? I don't know. I think the fallout of these high interest rates, we haven't really seen them yet.
Right.
5%, 6% interest on a $2 million mortgage is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it's a challenging time, but things are flying off the shelf. Like we just had 4 offers that are on our offer date on our house listed at $1.2 million. So I guess it depends what market, but
it's just still there's a threshold on what a property can and should sell for too, right? Like there is a ceiling based on financing.
Correct.
Like you can't, just because you want to pay a certain amount for a house doesn't mean that your bank is going to approve your loan for that amount, right?
Well, I think we're going to get into that further down the road in episodes where we talk about what do appraisals mean and why do banks use appraisals for properties and how does that affect the price of the house and the value of the house, right?
Yeah.
But we'll get more into that, I think, in the future.
Sure.
Pretty much wraps it up for this week's episode of the Area Podcast. Follow us on YouTube, add us on TikTok and Twitter, and actually we don't have Twitter. No.
It's not called Twitter anymore.
No,
X.
it's called X. So we don't have X. Don't follow us on that. Follow us on Instagram at Area Realty Inc. I'm Alessandro Bertucci.
And I'm Owen Fawcett.
Thank you.